Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. And today, as my special guest, I have with me Lynn Daren. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, good to be here.
Lynn is the author of the book, The Prophet Stephen. And we will discuss that book. We'll start discussing the book in just a minute. But Lynn has 2 free books to give away during this stream. And the first book is going to go to the first person who can guess where I met Lynn. And I'll give you a couple of hints. I met Lynn very recently at a conference. So you have to guess which conference we met at. And the first person to get it will get a free copy of the book. Now, the second person to get a free copy of the book will be the person who asks the most interesting question. And Lynn and I will evaluate the questions and decide which one is the most interesting. So that one will not be awarded until the end of the stream so that we have a chance to evaluate all the questions that come in during the stream. So Lynn, tell us a little bit about the Prophet Stephen.
Oh, well, it's a novel. It's a fiction novel. It's actually Bible fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comedy adventure, and it's I tried to make it like a beach read. I didn't want it to be too heavy or serious, or even though it deals with religious and biblical themes. It's I can't tell you why I wrote it. When you're compelled to make a piece of art, it comes out of you like I kind of understand why the people wrote the Bible when they did. You almost feel overcome by the Spirit, by the Holy Spirit.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, thinking of that, that makes me wonder, people who are writing the Bible, they probably did feel inspired, and that might be where they got that feeling of inspiration.
It could be. It's a very real feeling. And while I'm writing, most of the time I don't know what's going to come out. I don't know. I don't write my jokes in advance. I don't, for this particular book. This one, I didn't plan a lot of the story in advance. And honestly, when it comes out, it can be surprising to the author as well. So
I've heard my son say that as well. He likes to write fan fiction.
nice.
And he's often said that he'll be writing something and one of his characters will do something he wasn't expecting.
Yes.
How can your character do something you weren't expecting? You're the one that's writing and determining what your character is going to do.
Yeah, one would think. And yeah, and in a way it is true. In a way, you are very much God when you are writing. So I created this world. I decided who lived and who died, and when and how, and that was really fun.
How did it feel being God?
It's a little bit too much power for some people, probably.
Okay. You weren't like Frodo with the ring.
No.
You were more like Boromir.
That's I did not get too far into Lord of the Rings, but I'd have to. Sorry, I'm not very good at the multitasking with the chat.
That's okay. If I put a comment up and I don't read it, it's pretty much just, something fun to look at. I do have a different comment from Mage that I want to talk about, so I've got that one started to talk about later after we talk about the book for a while, because it's a little bit off topic. One question that I had very early in the book was the choice of the name Stephen for the prophet. And I was wondering if it's because the first martyr in the Bible is Stephen.
I mean, the short answer is it was a happy coincidence
Okay.
that happened. But the long answer is that wow, where to start? So this book is actually the third try on this story for me.
Okay.
So I was about 70 pages in to a different story,
Mm-hmm.
and I was happy with it. And I sent out my 70 pages to my first line of defense, my most trusted critique partners. One of them came back with meh, and so to show them that they were wrong, and just so you know, this was my mom who was a meh.
That hurts.
She said it with love, and she is
Yeah.
one of my favorite critique partners. So
I totally get that, but usually your mom is your greatest cheerleader, and
right,
mothers think that whatever you do is absolutely the best in the world. So for your own
right,
mom to say, Toki, I think I probably need to work on this some more.
right. Oh yeah, it was yeah. So so I went back to my computer and I kind of rage wrote because I was like, she's not gonna like the second one, the one with, you know, that she thought would be better. And so I was like, oh fine, maybe I'll write it this way and you'll see just how great it is. And I wrote the first chapter of this book, and I was like, yeah, this actually works. And I threw the name Stephen in there just because I'm like, I don't know, Stephen. And it actually turns out really that became one of the linchpins of the book, him being him having the same name as the first martyr.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay, we have our first question from Mark Caesar. Do you start writing with a plan, or does the narrative evolve over time?
For me, each book is different. This one in particular, I pantsed it. Yes. So I'm usually more of a plotter. You know, there's plotter and pantser, and I usually plot as much as I possibly can. And this one, because it started out of the rage writing, I went with it, and I kept pantsing it as much as possible, and it worked out surprisingly well. I'm so pleased with the things that happened while I was writing this book.
Okay. Now, this is not your first book?
It's not. It's very, very different than what I've written before.
Okay. Okay.
So
different genre,
different voice, different, just about as different as it can be. Okay. And I never expected to write an adventure book, and I didn't think I could. I didn't think I could write a battle scene. And it happened. So it's surprising what you can do when you're trying not to think too hard about it.
I will say that I have not read the entire book, but I read the first 6 chapters and the last chapter.
Thank you.
It is a page turner. You know, I like to read, and I can get engrossed in a book. But I do know that one book I read recently, and I'm not going to say what book it is because it was written by someone I know well. I got bored in the middle of it and put it down because I didn't care about the characters. And that was one thing I found very engaging about your book, is very quickly I got into your characters and I cared about them and I cared about what happened to them.
Well, I think that compliment means a lot to me, especially since I've seen your content, and I know that you're somebody whose opinion on that I would respect. So thank you.
You
appreciate that.
Welcome. Okay, we have another question from Mark Caesar. Do you write using voice to text, or do you type everything?
I type everything.
Okay.
Mark Caesar. I haven't. I I'm very ADD. Just so in case anyone can't tell, got. So I've got like 10 notebooks, unfortunately, that I have to go between. I've got sticky notes everywhere. I use 2 computers, 1 laptop, 1 desktop. But yeah, it's all typed out.
Okay. And this next question goes right hand in hand with something that I was going to ask you. So I'll ask you this one first. Is fan fiction suggests you're a fan of the Bible? Is that so?
Thank you. That's that's a good question, Chris Adams. And yeah, I actually read the Bible for the first time front to back right before I finished this book.
Oh, really?
I decided I would need to read the Bible to finish this book.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I had studied the Bible. I had actually taken a class on the Bible as literature in
Mm-hmm.
college. Unfortunately, they didn't even have a 102. Otherwise, I would have kept going. But I love studying the Bible, which itself is fan fiction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I am a big fan of the Bible. I love reading it. During the pandemic, I got real into reading the Bible, and usually with a glass of wine nearby. Didn't we all kick back and read the Bible?
Actually, it wasn't too long before the pandemic that I stopped reading the Bible.
Yeah.
Although in one respect I haven't. I mean, I stopped being a Christian in 2019, and the pandemic came like 6 months later. So up until then, I was reading my Bible at least 3 days a week, if not 5, if not 7. But then I was reading it, as a believer, as, that this is something I believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I quit, I started my channel just a few months after I became an atheist. And so now as I'm writing things for my channel, I'll go and check verses, but most of the time, because I've read the Bible so many times, it's just a matter of, okay, what was the reference on this verse?
Mm-hmm.
I need the verse about many are called, but few are chosen. And so I'll type that in and go find where is that verse and then get an illustration of that verse. So I'm not really reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I already know what's there. I just have to find what I already know is there. Although when I watch Apologia, I have found a number of things in the Bible that I never realized were there. And not that I didn't realize that they were in there, because I've certainly read them, but that I didn't realize how they fit together. And the biggest one, of course, is the Galilee Jerusalem problem with the resurrection. That, I've read the resurrection accounts many, many times, but never side by side.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized that they do not fit together.
Oh, right. That was, one of the best things that I've learned, of course, after leaving religion, was all these things about how religion was developed and how Christianity evolved, and who made it, how it happened. And all these things that you learn after you leave the church is just mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we're going to get into your story in just a minute, but I am going to remind people of the 2 contests that we have going for a free book. One, which I thought we would have given away already, but maybe a lot of people didn't hear what I said, because people were in the commercial. It was at the beginning of the show, and there's more people here now. But the first book, free book, will go to whoever can guess where I met Lynn. And the hint was we met at a conference, and it was quite recent. So anyone who's watched this channel enough knows what conference I went to quite recently and should be able to figure it out. And even if you don't know which conference I went to quite recently, you should be able to Google what conferences have been within the last 2 months and be able to find it that way. So whoever is the first person to guess what conference I met Lynn at will get a free copy of the book. And there also is a link to the book in the description on Amazon. The book is available both as a paperback or as a Kindle edition. And I believe that the link is to the paperback, but it's not too hard to find the Kindle edition from there. The Unlucky Legume says, I know the answer to the first question, so it wouldn't be fair to guess. Yeah, Unlucky Legume was there too. And Mr. Shadow Kitty got a part of the answer. Did you meet in Philadelphia? Yes, we met in Philadelphia. There we go. Mr. Shadow Kitty has won the first book. The Atheist Conference. Yes, the American Atheist Conference. Okay, so Mr. Shadow Kitty is the winner of the first book. Mr. Shadow Kitty, if you could email me your, let's see. Either email me or Lynn your email address, and Lynn will send you a link to get your free book. Okay, the second free book will be given away at the end of the show, and it will be to the person who gave us the most interesting question. So I've been starring all the questions as we go along, and at the end, Lynn and I will decide which one was the most interesting question.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lynn, tell us a little bit about your personal backstory. Have you always been an atheist?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I actually started out as a Catholic when I was, as far back as I remember, I was a Catholic. And I remember going to church every Sunday. It was a lot like those scenes from The Simpsons. They would go to church on Sunday and kind of reluctantly, go, but only because I don't want to go to hell. And I think it wasn't, it was, I don't know how old I was when we started, because of course my family, you do what your family does. I did, because they're responsible for keeping you alive and, ensuring your well-being. And they tried their best. My parents are awesome. My family is awesome. I'm sorry, but I have to gush when I talk about my family because my family is the best. Yeah, so we started going to we went to Calvary, actually, the big, the mega church. I was probably a teenager.
Calvary Chapel?
Yeah.
That's not Catholic, though.
No, we became Christian.
Oh, you
at that
Protestants then.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was much more exciting. That was, that's when I actually got into it, because before I wasn't into it, but I went, yeah, right. Oh, nice. Purple. But yeah, we became Christian, and they had the rock bands, and they had the exciting sermons. And okay, let me just tell you this about myself. I was born with narcolepsy. I didn't know it until I was 22, but I had to deal with narcolepsy. I thought that I just had, what do you call it? Chronic fatigue syndrome or something. I thought this was something that everybody deals with, falling asleep all the time. But it turns out, yeah, I've got narcolepsy, and I wasn't a very good Christian, because I would fall asleep. I would sleep through a lot of it. I missed a lot of what they said. So I didn't learn a whole lot while I was there, but I tried, and I wanted to be a good Christian, and I wanted to have the mark that God could see, and, stand out to him, and be one of the best and brightest in heaven. And that lasted until sorry, I saw the question, and yeah, at the time I just went with whatever was being taught to me. and it was mostly because, I would fall asleep halfway through, and I would glean whatever I could. And so part of it was just trying to keep up with the information. And so I would worship the God in front of me at the church because everyone was doing it. So of course that's what was true.
Okay, we have a question that's right along those lines, and I'm going to let you answer it, and then I'm going to answer it as to myself because my answer might be different than yours.
Mm-hmm.
When you change denominations, do you actually change what you believe?
Yeah, and that is the one that I was answering, is that, I mean, I was a kid, my brain was developing, and they seemed certain about going to hell, and and all the rules you needed to follow. So I followed all the rules that I learned while I was awake in church, and I sang the songs, and I was a good Christian. I tried to be a good Christian while I was there. Yeah, growing up, that was a big part of who I was, unfortunately.
For me, it was the other way around. If I changed what I believed, then I changed denomination to fit what I now believed. And the only time I had a major shift in what I believe before the major cracks in my faith that led to my atheism was when I switched from being an Arminian to being a Calvinist. And what happened was I was at a church that was an Arminian church, and a friend of mine who I was very close to in that church was convinced to become Calvinist and left to go to a Calvinist church. And she started telling you that the church doctrine isn't quite right. They have these things just slightly off. And she started showing me the material that supported this biblical view, and convinced me that Calvinism was the correct theology. And so I changed churches because I had changed what I believed. Then after that, I did go to a couple of different denomination churches. However, they were always churches that were in line with that belief. In other words, when I moved from Fort Wayne to Huntsville, the first thing I did was look for a Calvinist church. Now, Calvinist is not a denomination. Presbyterians are Calvinist. Some Baptists are Calvinist. Dutch Reformed are Calvinist. Pretty much any church that has Reformed in their name is going to be Calvinist. So I would look over the doctrine and I would choose the church based on what I believed rather than the other way around.
Mm-hmm. See, and I wish I could say that that's the way I went, but yeah, I was more like a product of what I was exposed to, and I went with people who just spoke with authority and seemed certain about what they preached, and it wasn't a lot of critical thinking.
And here's Atheist Carpenter did it the same way I did. I think people's beliefs change first, and then they find a denomination that fits better. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Okay, I'm caught up on the chat now. Okay, so the question that I had for you is, when I was reading the book, when I finished the third chapter, I was thinking, this could just as easily be a Christian book as an atheist book, when you're only that far into the book. And I was wondering if you intended for the book to appeal to a Christian audience as well.
Okay. It's Bible fan fiction, so if you've read the Bible, this isn't going to be a spoiler. But otherwise, it might be a little bit of a spoiler. Yes, I did try to lead the reader down one road that kind of went with the mainstream ideas of the Bible, and I only kind of bring in the more nuanced, like lesser known bits of the Bible later, and that's on purpose, because the twists to the story don't come until later, and I mean, you're not going to think that it was made for Christian or atheists alike later. At the risk of spoiling, but again, it's Bible fan fiction, and I tried to stay as true to the Bible as I could, and I did bring in other sources where I needed to, because I couldn't help it. There are such cool things in the Apocrypha and in other works, and I couldn't not use them. So
Purple Rhymes with Orange is a big fan of Lilith. And I think Purple will very much appreciate that Lilith is in the book.
Lilith was fun to write. Just try writing a scene with what you think Lilith might do. She's fun to write. She's just based on the lore surrounding Lilith. I mean, of course, her name only comes up once in the Bible, depending on what version you look at. Yes. So, and while I was writing this, I actually used this site called Knowing Jesus Bible or something. I didn't use Bible Hub. Bible Hub is apparently probably the best well-known site where you can look at different versions at the same time. I found this other site to be very user-friendly, where I could look at different versions, like 5 or 6 of them all at the same time, so that I could see, the different, I could get kind of a consensus of like what it's trying to say. And none of this is scholarly work. None of this is like, trying to be that true to the Bible. I learned a lot about Christianity and a lot about the development of the Bible while I was writing this book. But yeah, this is, I changed the story where I needed to for the story's sake, but while trying to stay, true to the text and the text as it was in front of me. I didn't do a whole lot of research into, which version might have the best translation on this given verse.
How long did it take you to write the book?
This version, beginning to end, a little over 2 years.
Okay. And who is the publisher?
I published it myself. This is a self-published book, and I wanted to maintain complete creative control. I didn't want to spend months waiting for rejection letters. I didn't want to deal with an in-house editor should it be accepted by anyone. So those, and I think I'm really happy with how it came out.
Okay. Now, is your mother still a believer?
She is not.
Okay.
She is not. And I took her to the atheist convention. She saw you there, and she had a blast. Oh, that was so much fun. And I don't know if the people in your chat have, probably some of them have been to atheist conventions. They're a great place, a great outlet, and just a great place to meet people. I like to go there to be inspired. Usually the people there don't know you, and yet they're genuinely happy to see you. It's wonderful, and there's this energy that if anybody in the chat is thinking about going to an atheist convention, and is on the fence, get off the fence. Just go have fun. It's awesome.
There is one coming up in Atlanta fairly soon. It's actually not an atheist convention, but there's Alex O'Connor is going to be there at Level Up.
Oh, wow.
I considered going because that's not that long a drive for me. And I really would like to meet and see Alex O'Connor. However, that one is rather expensive.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I turned away from that one because the price on that one's pretty steep.
Yeah, that is the the downfall, or the bad part about conventions, of course, unless you're a speaker, which
Yeah.
which I haven't been yet, but maybe someday. Oh, is there a sequel?
Imagining Someday asks, is there a sequel?
There is one in the works.
Okay. Okay. And thank you for the super chat to Constellation Pegasus. How familiar are you with scholars like Bart Ehrman, Robert Price, and others?
Oh, I mean, familiar enough to recognize the names. So I have a couple of Bart Ehrman's books. I stole them from my mom. I don't intend to give them back, but she will watch this, so we'll see how that goes. And Robert Price has had some, like, from what I understand, he's a bit controversial, at least, especially more recently. But that doesn't, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say about Robert Price. But Bart Ehrman has a lot to teach for sure. And I am a fan.
And he's got so many courses that come one right after the other that it's hard to keep up with them all.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And he hasn't stopped. I mean, so there's always more to learn about the Bible and about the development of Christianity. And unfortunately, like, I want to know it all. I do. And there's enough that I will never know as much as I want to know about it if I study every day until I die. So,
did your mom leave the faith at the same time you did?
No, she didn't, but she didn't tell me that she did. So she let the three of me and my two siblings, she let us find our own way out, and we all did. And my dad is still there, but there's respect among all of our family members. So yeah, I feel for my dad because he has to deal with being the only
believer
Christian amongst us, knowing that the rest of us are out. So
the one thing that I find amusing about that is generally Christianity has more appeal for women than it does for men. And there are more male atheists than there are females. So for all the women to leave, but the only person hanging on is a man is unusual.
Yeah. Well, I've got my mom and my sister, and then my little brother. So one dude made it out.
So what convinced you that Christianity wasn't true anymore?
Oh, okay. So I had a slow walk out of the faith, and it was kind of an amble, and I didn't really have any epiphanies or aha moments. I actually walked so slow out of the faith that I didn't even notice that I had. I looked back and realized, oh, I'm like, that what happened? Okay, I guess I'm here. But yeah, so I did have some not moments, but some things that challenged my faith when I was real young. And I think that kind of, set the foundation for me to just leave later on in life, when I was 18 or 19. But when I was younger, when I was I'll tell you, in 1990, when a Charlie Brown special came out, it was called Why Charlie Brown Why? And it was about this girl who had leukemia. And I mean, before that, I had, heard about babies dying from cancer, and, why would God allow bad things to happen in the world? That type of idea had been rattling around in my head. But when that Charlie Brown special came out, that shook me. That it made me wonder why God let babies die, or children, or because this girl in the cartoon had leukemia, and she pulls through. So, spoiler.
Now,
But,
I'm not familiar with that one, but I do know that Charles Schulz was a believer. And so I'm a little surprised that a work by a Christian would cause you to lose your faith. At the end of his work, and like I said, I'm not familiar with that particular cartoon. Was there a message of hope that
yes,
was God involved in it at all?
not specifically, but she does pull through. She does live and goes into remission, but it left me with the feeling of, so many people die from this, and they're so young. They didn't do anything yet, and so that really, really did stick with me. But I also, from the church, was given this tool to use to strengthen my faith, and know that I was coming back to the faith even stronger because I had questioned my faith. And that was unfortunate because it did that. But so, yeah, so I had that experience. And marched on, Christian soldier, and kept going. The other thing that tore a hole was the fact that yeah the other but I've been bisexual since I can remember, and so I had to deal with that as well. And it seemed like it was just assumed that I was straight growing up, and I was told a lot, when you grow up and get married and have kids, and the assumption was, marry a man and have kids, and turns out kids were never in the cards for me, and that's fine. And
do you have a mate?
I don't. I don't have a significant anything, and I don't have kids. And it's all good. but it took me a while to get to this place. This was a big one. I had to convince myself early on that I was to ignore what I was feeling. And that was bad. That was gross. That was, and that part of myself just had to be cut out.
So when Frank Turek and those people say that you just quit believing because you wanted to sin.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Okay. Mark Caesar asks, is your father showing cracks now that the rest of the family are atheist?
So we don't talk about as outside my immediate family. We don't bring it up. We don't want to make it a thing, especially since my dad is still, he's got one foot in both worlds. So it's not worth it to try.
I totally get that, because my husband is still a believer. And so, yeah, we just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Chris Adams says, I haven't read the Bible, but my understanding is that Lilith doesn't appear in it. Why include a non-biblical character in a Bible fanfic?
Yeah, so, okay. So I actually include a section at the end of the book for anyone who wants to nerd out and find out what's in the Bible and what's not that I included in the book. It's not part of the story. Thank you for asking.
Lilith is in the Bible. It just depends on which version of the Bible you're reading.
Yes.
If you're reading the Catholic Bible, she's there because they include the Apocrypha, but she's not in the Protestant Bible.
Right. And yeah, exactly. Because I did, I do have an annotation on that, on Lilith specifically, and what I found in the Bible or the certain versions of it, and what was drawn from other sources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mark Caesar has a good comment here. Now, this goes back to what you were saying about your bisexuality.
Mm-hmm.
That's something religion is responsible for, making us feel ashamed of our sexuality.
Yes, and it is a big, it's a good tool for religion to use, I think, because it's such a big part of human nature. I mean, especially those of us who weren't born entirely straight. It can be a good way to control people.
It is, but it also makes you wonder, why would a creator God, who's God of all of the universe, care what we are doing in our bedrooms?
Yes. And actually this, I do, like, I don't like go into it, but I do touch on this in the book. Like it's a theme. It is something that comes up.
And what's worse is, if God is supposed to have created us and formed us in our mother's wombs, then he gave us these very traits that he's then condemning us for having.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, yeah, it's a hard thing for a young person to struggle with if you are struggling with it. And that one was hard because I decided, and for me, I'm a woman and I'm bisexual. I wasn't gay. So I had a choice, basically. I could marry a guy, and that was an option. And that's what I decided I was going to do when I was younger. And that was really unfortunate, because deciding to determine a big part of my life based on, this fantasy, all these lies. And
did you get married at any time?
I was engaged twice, but I've never been married.
Okay. One of the major themes of the book is the apocalypse and the end times.
Yes.
So was Revelation the primary study for the book?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, as I learned about, Revelation, and I learned, it's a lot more reliant than I knew on some other prophetic books in the Bible, Isaiah, and another one that's just not, sorry, going to come to mind right now. But because for this book, this is the first book, and I've tried to stick more with the Old Testament, except for Revelation, because that was, I had to use that for the apocalyptic stuff. But yeah, it turns out that I could rely a lot on Isaiah, and I think Ezekiel was the other one that had a lot of prophetic, like the end of times.
Daniel does too. Did you use
yes.
Daniel?
Yeah. And seraphims, the seraphim angels are so fun. So the angels aren't always beautiful. I actually did not know exactly what they had been described as before this whole project began. But seraphim angels are super metal. There's so much in the Bible.
The ones with all the wheels?
With the wheels and the eyeballs and the different heads.
I always had a hard time picturing them when I would read that.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen different drawings, but none of them look like how I pictured them. Although my husband came up with this one that I thought was really funny, is that the angels in heaven must run into each other a lot because they have 6 wings, and with 2 they cover their eyes, and with 2 they cover their feet, and with 2 they fly. So they're all flying around blind. Are they running into each other?
Oh, they've got to. And then with all the lights and all the singing. Yeah.
Maya Atkinson says, in fairness, many bisexuals choose to live a hetero lifestyle out of convenience.
This is true. This is true. It is a choice. And I mean, that goes along with, I wanted to be bisexual and I wanted to sin. So that's eventually why I got out of religion.
Okay. What do you think is the best part of the book?
I have a couple of favorite moments.
Okay.
God talks to Stephen about salt. They have, and that I actually wrote that pretty early on. But that's got to be one of my favorite scenes, is where they talk about the salt. Salt is a big theme in the Bible. It comes up a lot, and it's used for many various things. And God is very into salt. I don't know why, but
would you like to read an excerpt from the book?
Oh, I should have prepared an excerpt. Let me see if I can.
I can talk for a while and let you look for something if you would like to do that.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. So let's go through with a few of the comments while Lynn is looking for an excerpt to read to us. The next comment we have is from Mage Greywolf, who says, "With all that light in heaven, I hope I get to wear sunglasses." That's a really good question, except, one of the questions that I had as a believer was whether or not it's possible to get a sunburn. And I was told no, because it's not actually the SUN, it's the light comes from the SON. John Hunter says, Lynn, did you use any research material for what seraphim and so forth were described before the Bible, or just the Bible descriptions?
I tried not to veer too far from the Bible. Like for my own personal knowledge, I learn other things that were related, but in as far as what I used, I tried to use only biblical stuff.
Okay.
Sorry, I hope.
Purple Rhymes Thorns says, if I was in heaven, I would keep my eyes covered too, with everything white and pristine. It must be so mind-bogglingly bright that I wouldn't be able to tolerate it. Actually, there's a lot of colors there. There's a lot of description of color in heaven, with jasper and emerald and turquoise, a number of different precious stones. Mr. Shadow Kitty says, God is pretty salty. Milwaukee Atheist says, congrats on the book, Lynn. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yes. I do have to mention Milwaukee Atheist, because I visited their channel a lot and watched their Bible study quite often. They do a great Bible study, go all the way through the entire Bible and use a lot of commentary and other sources. So that was a great resource for me. Thank you, Milwaukee Atheist.
Oh, this is a really good question from John Hunter. It's not necessarily for you, Lynn, because it's really a theological question. But the question is, was there light in heaven before the big man said, let there be light? Because if Jesus always existed, as the Bible claims, and Jesus is the light source of heaven, then there should always have been light in eternity past, even before God said light. Now, let there be light. And that's a really good point, John Hunter. I had never thought of that before. Limited Light asked, is Lynn on YouTube? I do not believe so. No. Okay.
No, I mean, like I believe I've chatted with Limited Light last week, and I'm Devil Inside is my handle, or Devil in something. I keep changing it. Sorry, but yeah, if you see Devil in the something with the Lynn in it, that's me.
Okay. I think I did see you in the chat somewhere recently, possibly with Godless Engineer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I lurk in a few places.
Okay. Mark Caesar says, regardless, Granny, you can get sunburn, but only in hell. Purple Rhymes with Orange says, salt was important in the Bible because they recognized its importance and it was difficult to obtain in a pure form. Maya says, I lurk in the MA streams at work, but sometimes they start talking about the rod of God. I have to turn it down. Okay. I even though this isn't a question, I am going to declare this the winner. This is the winner for the best comment of the day. Yeah. And Maya Atkinson gets the other free book.
Right on.
Because that's hilarious. So Maya, if you could send me your email address, I will give it to Lynn, and Lynn will send you the other free book. Okay. Mage Grey Wolf says, with all those scientists going to hell, I bet they have the place air conditioned by now. Okay. Do you have an excerpt ready for us?
Yes. And okay. I am sorry because I'm not the greatest reader out louder, but I will give it my best.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. So Stephen is in the scene. He's alone with God in his apartment, in Stephen's apartment. And Stephen has been chosen as the apocalyptic prophet. This is in the middle of the book, page 127. And Stephen finally gets the chance to ask God. Why me? I asked. Why'd you pick me? God took Leon's brand new canister of Himalayan pink salt from the cabinet, set it on the table, and sat down with me. He turned the salt around and around, slowly tilting his head from side to side, looking at it. Do you want something to put that on? I can slice up some tomatoes. He opened the canister and used the bling blade to remove the freshness seal. Then he dumped out the whole canister of salt onto the table. Thank God Leon wasn't there. He would have actually lost his shit. Honestly, I wasn't sure who to thank, but the old man was right there in front of me, so he got the credit. God stuck his knobby old finger into the pile of seasoning and swirled the crystals around. What was it with him touching food? God touched a bagel early on in the book. So, have you ever taken a moment to look at these grains of salt before you doused your food with them and shovel them in your face, Stephen? Nuh-uh, I answered him. Of course not. He fished a single grain out of the pile and studied it. Each tiny, delicious granule has fire and facets like a diamond. No two are the same, but they all taste the same. You with me? Sure. Nuh-uh. How many do you think are in this pile, Stephen? How many grains? I asked. Yes, Stephen. I don't know, like 30,000? Good guess. So you have these 30,000 grains of salt and you... Holy shit, I guessed it right. Is it exactly 30,000 grains? He broke his intense study from the grain to glare at me. How should I know? Did you see me count them? Do you think I have time to sit around counting grains of salt? I just thought you knew, you know? That's all. Stephen, I created these crystals. I created them the same day I created the whole damn planet. You know what's in them? They have over 80 minerals and trace elements, high in potassium, not to mention calcium and magnesium. I can tell you that they came from mines in the Punjab region of Pakistan because I put them there. And I can tell you that the soldiers in the army of Alexander the Great first discovered the salt deposits because I led them there to discover it. I had the foresight to make it edible, healthy, and satisfyingly savory, not to mention useful in making lamps and salt and shot glasses. Are you telling me now that's not enough? I have to know how many grains of salt are in a shaker for you to know my awesomeness? Fuck you, Stephen, just fuck you. It would have been cool is all if you knew off the top of your head.
Okay, very good. That gives you just a little taste of what is in the book. And I can tell you from experience, it is funny. The characters are delightful. I highly recommend the book. There are no reviews yet, correct?
There are not. Oh, thank you,
Okay,
Mom.
so I will have to write a review because I just read it the last couple of days. And then when did it come out?
The print came out yesterday, so it's
Okay.
it's brand spanking new. I didn't do a lot of planning for it. I kind of just wanted to put it out in the world and be like there it is. And
This is your first chance to talk about your book, is it?
yes,
Okay.
it is. This is actually my first stream ever, and I'm so honored that it's here.
Are you going to do any book signings?
None are on my horizon. I have none.
It's hard when you don't have a publisher because then
Yes.
you're not in the bookstore to go to the bookstore to do it. You'd almost have to set up a stand like maybe at a carnival or at if there's a community rummage sale or something like that where you could set up a booth.
Yeah. And I've been, because of the nature of the book, and again, later on, and you just saw where God says, fuck you, Stephen. It is not the most mainstream book. So I actually have been trying to talk to mostly atheists about it because, one, they're more likely to have read the Bible. And two, they're going to be a little bit more accepting of it. So I am going to try to be selective about where I actually make it accessible. Although, Amazon, it's everyone. so it's not, I'm not trying to restrict it, but it will offend. And I don't mean it to, I didn't put it out there to offend, but it's going to, can't please everyone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we are out of time. So I will let you have one last opportunity. Is there anything about the book that you want people to know or about yourself that you'd like people to know that we haven't covered?
Oh, thank you. I think that I said everything that I had hoped to say, except that there are a couple of people that I did see in the chat that I wanted to mention because I just had such an awesome time at the Atheist Convention. I got to see people who, other creators who just have been, as part of this community, given me the opportunity to stop being a spiritual but not religious person. I'm now an agnostic atheist, which doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's actually a huge change in my worldview and how I interact with people. So Courageous Korea, who I saw there, I love her work and she's an awesome person, and she inspires me. The Unlucky Legume, who I also met. If you are not familiar with that channel, that is another amazing resource. It's hilarious. And I made my mom watch the videos while we were at the conference, and we both just cracked up. Yeah, just Bible fan fiction as a genre. More people should do it. I hope more people do it. This whole book actually started, I think, about 20 years ago when I first read Christopher Moore's Lamb. If anybody is not familiar with that work, that's where it all began. And now we are here. And thank you very much for letting me talk about it.
You are most welcome. And thank you, John Hunter, for the support. And you are most welcome for the stream. We have one last question that is very appropriate at this point, from Chris Adams, who asked, do people do book signings at atheist conventions? Absolutely. When I was at the Better Conference last year, was that I guess it was a couple of years ago, Dave Warnock was there with his book. Josh Bowen was there with his book, and they both did book signings at the American Atheist Conference. There were several people there that did book signings. There's one woman that I would really like to get on, and I'm just slightly hesitant because her book is fascinating. It's called Disobedient Women. But she has cerebral palsy, and she is difficult to understand. And so I'm not sure how well she will come across in a stream. When she spoke at the Atheist Conference, I had to watch the subtitles because there were a number of words that she said that I could not understand, and I only got them from the subtitles. So if I do get her on, please be very gracious to her because speaking is difficult for her. But yes, absolutely, people do book signings and atheist conventions, and maybe, Lynn, you can get a table at your next convention.
Hopefully.
Okay, next week, my guest will be William Cluck and James Walker. They are the founders of the Christian Atheist Book Club. And it is Bill Cluck is the one that alerted me to Leighton Flowers reviewing the conversation that I had with Joe Ensley that led to the video that I just released the other day. So I have to thank Bill Cluck for bringing that to my attention. And they have quite an interesting book club there. They have some really good discussions, and James Walker has a lot of contacts with some big name apologists, and they've been able to get some big name apologists to come and speak to their book club. So that is going to be a fascinating conversation as well. So thank you to everyone in the chat for your comments and questions. Thank you so much for coming, Lynn, and thank you for the book. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Well, thank you, and thanks for checking it out.
Okay. Live your life.